I am very excited in a weird sort of way, because we're going to be talking about something that isn't a lot of fun with two amazing people, though. So my friend Joanna Fix, who I've never met in person, only virtually, and she lives far away, but boy, do I feel like I know her well, because we've been through some things together that friends go through. And then Rachel, who you all have seen me with, I'm sure, probably multiple times. She's pretty far away too. I have met her in person, but we spend more time together virtually than we do in person. But the reason we're getting together today is to talk about pain, brain pain, and the reality that it's hard to maintain and sustain yourself when you're in brain pain. And we're going to talk a little bit about that from various perspectives, because our belief is that pain is real, pain can be really intense, and pain needs to be listened to, because it's one of the core needs that all humans have, is to get rid of or try to get away from or try to eliminate pain when it's present. So I'm going to open it up and I'm going to turn it over, because this is a courageous conversation and I've got courageous people here. So Joanna, jump in and get us started here on this conversation.
Thanks, Tifa. Hi, Rachel. I heard some feedback, but I don't know if that's me. Okay. We lost a good friend of ours last month. It's hard to believe. And she was a core team member, and she struggled with some really bad back pain for, I think it was generally located in her back, for a number of months. I know that when we first started together about 1.5 years ago with PAC, that she wasn't experiencing that. It came along. My best recollection is probably about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit earlier than that. But in the last 6 weeks before she passed, she and I had still been communicating. We hadn't had that last month of contact, but we had planned a presentation together, and she had been complaining of this back pain, and she and her husband had been complaining and been pursuing this with providers, various different providers in her area. And it was not caught until it was too late. And I'm not a medical doctor, but my concern is that had she not had dementia, perhaps she would have gotten a more thorough workup. Perhaps she would have been able to communicate, which Lynn was a great communicator, as we all know. She probably would have been able to been more communicative had she not been living with FTD. And as she progressed, and the pain was a constant right in front of her face and constant daily reminder every moment of every day, unless she was on so much pain meds that she was just passed out. How is she supposed to think through how to communicate what she is feeling accurately to a provider? So what struck me, so many things, was that, damn it, this shouldn't be happening, because there is pain. Things get missed. And the best case scenario is that they would have done a full workup on Lynn or whoever, and it would have turned out to be, hey, nothing serious, right? That's the best case. Worst case is they don't do a complete workup. They maybe don't even do anything because they think it's just her dementia talking, and it ends up being fatal. And then there's this whole spectrum in between of people living with pain. I fortunately do not live with constant pain, but I do experience pain differently now with Alzheimer's disease. And it's really weird.
Okay, so Joanna, I'm going to pause you there for just a second, because you shared a lot of really, really potent information and really important. You sort of described Lynn's state and Lynn's issues that developed from that. And I would add, you also described for yourself that how you experience pain now is different. But fortunately for you, and I'm going to say fortunately for you, you don't experience a lot of physical or physiological pain right now. But I'm gonna pause us there for a second, because I think this is the other piece that people truly do not get, that there are moments when you're living with dementia that it's incredibly emotionally painful, relationship painful, spiritually painful. I mean, those are moments where there's a lot of pain associated with it. And I'm curious, from your perspective, in those really moments when you're in intense pain from maybe an emotional state or a relationship that's not working, is your brain going, oh, that's emotional pain? That's probably not physical. I mean, I bet that's just emotional. Or is it this intense sort of reaction to being in pain?
That is a great question. No, my brain doesn't filter it out like that. Last year, I was asked to give the commencement speech at my high school in Santa Fe. And it was a wonderful experience. Okay, it was great to do that and deliver that. And then when I got done, I was in tremendous physical pain because of that experience. It was emotional, talking about the dementia and just, the whole experience, the expectation. And it was very new to me to have that experience, have that emotional and mental stressful situation become physical for me, where literally I had to sit in the tub at the hotel and soak my arms and my legs because I could not use them. I couldn't brush my hair. That's how bad it was. And that was a good experience, Tipa. That's like,
Exactly.
Good stress at a wedding.
You would have done it again because it was so valuable and it gave you so much by doing it. But there was a cost, and the cost was this intense pain that you experienced after it because you gave it literally everything you had.
Right. And I wasn't jogging in place while I was delivering it. I was standing at a podium and I had somebody with me. I mean, it kind of blindsided me, actually, because I had to cancel my dinner plans.
Right. And it came out of nowhere. I mean, and so there was no way you could have anticipated it. And two Tylenol or acetaminophen or whatever we're going to call them, so we don't get the brand name, or two aspirin wouldn't do a thing for that kind of pain.
No, I had to calm down. I had to just chop off all the stimulation. I think I was in a dark bathroom even. I had to turn the lights off. There was no TV. There was no noise. I just had to shut it all down.
And you were in the bathtub. You got in the bathtub and even eliminated some gravity.
Right. I got in the tub and I just sat, and I might have cried, but I was not unhappy. Right. I didn't break a leg or an arm, but it was just, I couldn't manage it any other way. And it was so incredibly strong that I couldn't even brush my hair.
And so I think, I would imagine for most people who are unfamiliar with listening and hearing from somebody who has capacity to use language and talk to us right now about the experience at the time, you wouldn't have been able to tell us all this stuff. There is no way you would have been able to do it in the moment.
Right.
But being willing to listen to it after the moment, then it also prepares you, I would think, a little bit for the possibility, if you want to do another one of these kind of events, what do we want to build in as a pain reliever?
Right.
It's not like you don't do something, but we build in a pain reliever so that there's a possibility that if you do this again, you have some thought or awareness, or somebody does, of what to do with the environment to allow you to recover from it.
Well, and that's exactly right. And it's really important to have my care partner or whoever is accompanying me be mindful of that. I think that's a word, because I knew at that point that I only did generally one thing a day, but I got caught up in the excitement of going to dinner after this big thing and celebrating. So when someone asked me, I was like, yeah. And then I was like, I'm sorry, my arms and legs feel broken. I actually cannot stand up. I had someone help drag me across the floor on a towel. I mean, it sounds incredible, and it is, but I wouldn't know I wouldn't know to say this if I hadn't experienced it. So can you imagine if if someone is dealing with something really devastating? Yeah. Well, like, I think I haven't been, what Rachel and I talked before we got on, the lack of sleep and the things with Lynn's passing, who I was close to, a lot of us were. When you lose someone, it takes a lot longer to get through that process. And again, that's different. I'm just comparing my life to how it is now to how it used to be. And it used to not be that way. So a lot of this stuff is blindsiding me. And I'm going, what's wrong with this? What's causing this? Oh, it's the Alzheimer's. My brain's not working the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, those synapses and that wiring, there's so many changes and differences that it's not there. It's there, but it's different. It's just really a different wiring process now.
Right.
And that's learning that about you. So that my first thought when I see you with, I need your help, I can't even move, or you're saying, pull me in there, then my brain is going, okay, pull me in there. What does that mean? So my first thought for someone in you, Joanna, not someone like you, but you, is to say, okay, I need to get her in an environment that gives her a whole lot less of anything. And I need to turn it all down for her and see if that helps the pain so that she moves from intense pain to a manageable pain so she can give me more information.
Right.
Because if I can't get the pain down a notch, she can't give me anything. She's sort of immobilized right now.
Exactly. So can you imagine if you had acute pancreatitis and it was right here on your face 24/7? Could you communicate that very well?
No.
Right.
No. And so there are a lot of other health conditions that can have that sort of impact on a human being, even without dementia. It can be that intensive pain, but to not know where the pain is coming from, because with some dementias like a frontal temporal, for sure, it can really rob you of where in your body is that coming from, actually. You don't know. You have no idea where it's coming. You know that your dog is very aware of something right there in the background.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. You're tuning it out because this has value. But it could be that in a moment that would set, if you were already in acute discomfort, that stimulation that just occurred could trigger you into acute pain. And this idea that when you're in acute pain, you can be really, really angry as much as you could be really immobilized. And
that's when the dining room chair took a hit, right? Because the dogs were barking and the pot was boiling and someone was pushing the door button, and I went, oh no, I have to do something. And it wasn't any of the three things that I needed to attend to. So I just took what was in front of me, and I did feel better.
Yeah. And so somebody from the outside who doesn't understand any of this in this bigger context of pain and pain management and pain distress, they would be trying all kinds of drugs and immobilizing your brain for you, which is one of the problems that Lynn had. Was the only way she could get some relief was if they totally immobilized her body and her brain.
Yeah.
And she had tried immobilizing her body. That just made it worse when she did have to move. But it then got to where she wasn't even able to do that kind of thing. But learning about this and understanding these differences in pain awareness and pain reactions and pain responses and pain stimulation and pain overwhelming, I think there's like such a lack of belief that you can learn this stuff in a way that could be helpful, that people don't even try.
I hear things like she's exaggerating. I mean, not me personally, but I hear that and I read that and then I have to stop reading because I go, I'm not a medical doctor again, but I don't think someone with dementia has the ability to malinger. That is a word that I studied in graduate school, and that is not something that we are capable of doing. And so this whole idea of he or she is doing it on purpose or they're exaggerating their pain. Are you flipping kidding me? I mean, because when I experience pain, so the only really bad thing I can talk about within this past year is when I hit my funny bone. But the worse pain is for me, the less I can communicate and complain about it. So that's counterintuitive, right? You think, well, the worse pain you're in, the more you're going to throw a fit. Well, the less I will communicate. And it has to do with all kinds of things, the pain itself, the experience, interacting with providers. If it's a hospital thing, the experience going there, riding in the car. There is so much that goes on with trying to get relief and trying to communicate that oftentimes for me, and again, it's the elbow thing, it's like the pain is, it's worth just having the pain. It's not worth all the rest of it. It's not worth trying to manage it. I'll just live with this because I can live with this.
And
but what if I can't?
And I am willing to bet that Lynn did that for a long time.
I know she did.
Lynn. And I'm going to put us over to Rachel for a little bit because Rachel had a one-on-one relationship as well as a group relationship with Lynn. And I know that she and Jim and Lynn, which is Jim is Lynn's husband, were trying as a trio to try to figure out what, if anything, we could do. And I would try some suggestions to Rachel and Rachel would try them. And we were so far away from Lynn's pain vortex that I was stuck. I was like, I don't know what else to recommend. I don't know what else to try at this point. So Rachel, talk to us a little bit about your experience with this idea of pain and, not able to maintain or sustain when you're in brain pain.
Yeah, I watched in my conversations with Lynn the effect that the pain had long term on her ability to be able to interact with people, things that she found value and purpose in, like doing the champion courses or doing stuff with Joanna, phone calls, being able to use her phone and not being able to use her phone anymore, not being able to have long conversations, not being able to like once you knew who Lynn was and you knew things and you just knew that this isn't Lynn, this isn't, she'd get lost. She wouldn't recognize her own room, which she basically didn't leave her room for months. She didn't leave her bed for however long and she wouldn't know where she was. She didn't know where the bathroom was. She couldn't tell me things. Her language got very vague and they put her through lots of going to the doctor in the car ride would be, terrible. They went to a different doctor 2 hours away trying to deal with that. A horrible MRI she told me about where she cried and screamed the whole way through it. And just how traumatic the whole thing was. And then when I called and I was able to finally talk to her husband, he put on speakerphone and she wasn't even able to talk to me on the phone anymore if he set it up. And you could just hear her screaming, just the intensity of panic of don't. And so you could just, even though I wasn't seeing her, you could just see and feel the panic and the distress in her voice. And so watching over a period of time, she lost her ability to walk, and then her ability to transfer was getting very small, her ability to tolerate sitting and, being able to move. And so you just watched how it basically her skills and abilities deteriorated over that time.
And now looking back, wondering how much was pancreatic issues for a long time. Now, historically, Lynn had had some other health issues that, again, knowing Joanna and knowing the background for Joanna, that's really helpful. So, Rachel, what did people seem not to really have found out about Lynn with pain before? Because I remember early on, one of my interactions with Lynn was about a stricture in her swallowing. Yeah, so she would have spasms, and they were intense spasms. And she could not eat, she could not swallow, she frequently had trouble even with saliva. I mean, and so this history of having really intense issues with reflexive patterns that should be more automatic and not really cause a lot of, it's that kind of thing. Talk about that a little bit, because I think that reemerged as a theme that got missed when they were exploring Lynn's potential for pain and where pain was and what pain was, and even what she might do with her body. And we call it, Joanna was talking about referred pain. You might have something going wrong somewhere, but it's actually your brain refers it to some other space. And so it's my right shoulder. Well, it isn't your right shoulder at all. It's your throat, but your brain says, this is a place where I feel it. And it's like, what is that? Well, it's this combined with this, that hippocampal area. It's like all this stuff gets so jumbled when there's this discomfort moving to pain. Intense.
And when it's extreme, you're holding your breath. I mean, I do that. And when I fell off the motorcycle as a teenager, it was so bad, I held my breath. And when I could catch it, I screamed bloody murder, and then I held it again. So we're going to hold our breath because it's just what we do. All of us.
Yeah, all of us do it. So there was something, though, Rachel, that I think I remember you talking about with Lynn, particularly.
Yeah, so it turns out after the fact that I found out that Lynn had...
When Rachel says after the fact, after Lynn died because things did not get identified early enough, and then when they finally were identified, bringing Lynn, try to save her at that moment, would not have been saving Lynn. It would have been saving the housing where Lynn had lived. But Lynn had been very clear what she was willing and interested in living in that housing and when she didn't want to live in that housing. And it wasn't going to be possible to bring Lynn back to where Lynn would be living the way that Lynn could live. So after that, so let's now, Rachel, because I want to be really clear, there were decisions that were made or not made along the road by medical providers that led us to a place where the only option was to say, no, we've got to let her go. It doesn't make any sense to bring her back to this, even if it is a possibility. That possibility wouldn't bring Lynn back. That would bring somebody back to just be present as little as possible. And that's not what Lynn was about. And she had been very clear about that.
Yeah, she had made her wishes known. And so we knew what was important to Lynn. And I kind of think that Lynn made a decision, even if it was somewhat subconscious, because at some point she stopped eating and drinking. And I think, Joanna, you had found an email where she had told you. And when I read that email, I went, she knew. That was when it was like Lynn made a decision that enough is enough and I'm ready to go. But it didn't seem like the doctors really did a thorough examination of really trying to figure out what was wrong. And I know that, Tipa, you and I talked about trying to do the breathing or trying to do some kind of brain retraining to try to desensitize the system. But then that was interesting because it had worked with the throat spasms. She had learned how to, deal with them to when they were starting to kind of keep that from taking over, and her brain was able to maintain control. And it never quite worked. And people on the doctor's side, they never really were interested in exploring that part. It's like, well, let's give you this pain patch. Well, let's try a different dose. Let's come back and we'll give you a shot. Well, we'll try this. So then afterwards, in talking with her husband, he was sharing with me that she had a history with pain, that she had always been hypersensitive. And so different situations like teeth or different issues, because she was very medically complex, had taken immaculate notes. And so she would describe, they would have to give her double a dose, like removing toenails. It was excruciating, and they had to do, double what they would do for a normal person. And even then, so the pain tolerance already was hypersensitive. And then you add this on top of it, and it was excruciating.
Yeah. And so when Rachel says they didn't explore, what they did is they put that binocular vision on her low back, and they never really let go of the pelvis and the low back as their interest point, even though they knew she lived with dementia, frontal temporal dementia. They never actually took a step back and went, well, if there's damage in the prefrontal cortex, it could really be logic and reason is the problem. And maybe Lynn's brain is giving her false data about what's going on here. I wonder if we should look bigger and wider at what might be happening, given that she has this complex medical history of swallowing and digestive problems and issues with, she's had a fall, but I wonder if there's anything else it could be, versus really honing in so tightly and be so tuned in, even though they had been using a lot of techniques that historically had been helpful for Lynn to manage pain. So E-stim, they had used TENS units, they had done, but there were things she had been doing before. And then there was some interaction with some providers that weren't particularly positive, emotionally, physically, or elsewise. And that was often painful, I think.
Very, would cry in tears.
Yeah. Because to be treated poorly when you feel like crap and you're trying your best to figure it out and to be compliant, not to be argumentative, but it doesn't help because you're still hurting like nobody's business and it doesn't seem to matter. And not for folks not to be willing to look beyond the meds. If the meds aren't working so well, maybe we need to look and see what else is going on here. And I know Jim felt trapped and Lynn felt trapped and Rachel, I felt trapped because it's like, I don't have the capacity to say, listen, here's what I want you to do. I mean, nobody did. And Jim finally was able to convince them, but it was that too little too late. But they still weren't listening to what Lynn was telling them. And at that point, it was physiologically telling them, not verbally telling them or even physically telling them at that point. She had lost capacity in both of those areas. So, okay, so I think I've got a few messages here. This conversation isn't just about the downside, it's about what do we do about it. So I'm going to give each of you your shot at what do you think we should do? What is it that we could change? What could we advocate for? What should people be aware of for themselves? Because any of those messages has value, I think, for our audience anyway.
Well, we know that pain is real. And from what I've experienced, just from what other people have shared, when you have a dementia diagnosis, it's providers seem to do more dismissing than they do let's widen the scope and let's take a broader look because this person may be not able to communicate this as clearly as we're talking now. And so that seems to be the trend. And I'm not trying to poo-poo everybody. I'm just saying this is the trend, is if you have dementia, then you get more dismissed than you would if you didn't. When you're complaining about
pain. And Joanna, to be fair, if you're a female and you have dementia, if you're a female of color and you have dementia,
right? There's
all these caveats of, and there's a term for it which is escaping me right in the moment. But this whole additive feature, where when you add a mix of these things, boy, are you on the short end of the stick when it comes to having your pain, your very real pain, being investigated and then treated in a complex way because it's a complex pain.
Right.
And so I just want to spread that out, because I think in our effort to really make sure we're supporting everyone, there are worse categories to be in than just to have dementia even.
Right.
You know,
It
you can
compounds.
have things on. Yeah.
Yeah. It compounds. So for me, if we're talking about what to do, the number one go-to is you just got to take a step back and you got to be looking at the entire person, rather than, do they have dementia and, they're complaining that their ankle hurts or, their teeth fell out. Let's look at the entire person and then start honing in, rather than, oh, well, they've got dementia, so they're probably imagining the pain, they're exaggerating the pain, they've got hallucinations. That needs to totally change and get rid of the whole dementia doesn't have pain associated with it, because that's just total BS.
So pain and dementia coexist, and sometimes pain causes dementia and sometimes dementia can cause pain, but sometimes they're both there, and we should be looking at them as two separate things and really being curious about that pain.
Right.
And figuring it out as a separate element for someone. Yeah.
There's another component. I don't know how much time we got, but I wanted to add this in there. And I think Artie said this and Michael said this in our Let's Talk session, is that, like Michael, I used to have a high pain threshold by my own definition. Seriously. I I've witnessed this when I've toured memory centers where, well-meaning staff will see somebody rolling around the floor because they stubbed their toe, and you would think they were dying of, appendicitis or something, lethal, because they stubbed their toe. And they're going, oh, you're fine. You're not hurt. Come on, get up. You're fine. And this is a trend. This is not a one-off. This is what's happening right now as we speak. And I'm telling you, when I hit my funny bone 10 years ago, I was like, darn, that really hurt. Now when I hit it, Forrest thinks I'm dying, because my brain is telling me this hurts so bad. I know I'm not dying, but my brain has betrayed me. Okay. And so I'm going to share that, my reaction. How helpful is it for somebody to tell me, oh, you're fine, you just hit your elbow, and my brain's going, I'm dying, and if you're not going to help me, I'm going to fight my way through this, and if you get in my way, you're probably going to be in pain too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that is one of those, and what you're bringing up is the idea of then somebody gets labeled as aggressive or physically aggressive or verbally aggressive. And it's like, we go back to, could they be in pain? Could there be an unmet, and we call it an unmet need. And in this case, the need is to be acknowledged that I'm hurting this much. And ow, oh my God.
Right. Rub some dirt on it. Worked when I was 4. It doesn't work now at 54.
Oh my God. It feels like you've just broken your elbow off. It sounds like, oh, wow. Okay. Hey, Joanna. Try it, man. Try it. Oh, yeah. Let's push it out there. You're doing great. Wow, man. That's great. Wow. Now, I don't know, does it feel less fractured than it did?
Yeah, it feels better. You know what I mean? You know how hurting that is.
Yeah. Wow, man. I'm telling you. Yeah. I don't know how you made it through it. That was just like an electric shock to your whole system, huh?
Right.
Scary stuff. Yeah. Felt like it was going to stop your heart. Yeah. Wow. Ooh, we don't want to do that again, do you?
Oh, no.
No time soon. Man, that sucks. Ow.
I got another one just like it on the other side.
Let's avoid that too. Huh? So in that moment where it may take a lot longer than those few moments because it wasn't real this time. When it's real, being there with someone, when it doesn't go away, we need to get even more curious about, okay, this is standardly what helps, Joanna, and it's not helping. So we need to get, man, I got to take a further step back and go, okay, well, okay, now I need to talk to other people. Now I need to sort of sort this out. Now I need to look at 24/7. Now I need to look at what she's eating, what she's not eating. What is going on here that could be precipitating this thing that is really different than, even with Joanna, with dementia, with her brain, with the changes, something is different and it deserves a good evaluation to see what, if anything, we can do about it. Because it's not working for her now. All right, Rachel, what you got?
So one of the things that I walked away with was watching Lynn's husband do an amazing job of advocating for Lynn and doing the very best he can, and watching the system just be so against advocating. And I learned a couple of things that were helpful as to how you can really try to get people to listen to you and take you seriously, can really be to come in with as specific information as you possibly can and detailed, such as, this is what is baseline for my person. Yes, she has dementia, but this is what she was doing as of 2 days ago. She was eating this much. She was drinking this many cups of liquid. As of such and such a time, she is not drinking. This is not normal for her with dementia. So basically taking away that, well, she just has dementia. It's like, no, you can't have that excuse. And I'm going to give you as much information as this is what is expected. This is normal for her as of a week ago. Now, what's hard is looking back and saying, oh, well, she hadn't been eating her favorite popcorn. Oh, she hadn't been liking the favorite salad that I've always fixed her. Oh, because you're in it and you're dealing with this chronic pain and constant at the same time. But if you can give them as much to take away, and like, I need you to look at and listen serious. I need you to look at this and try to figure out what's going on, because I'm telling you something is not right.
Yeah. And to not let yourself get wrapped up in that moment at looking at what you missed along the way that was changing, because then you give them too much detail for too long and they'll go, oh, this guy's just in denial about progression of dementia. And it's like, whoa. No, I am describing you an acute episode of a change. I am talking to you more about a delirium state or something that is rapidly shifting. That is not a classic dementia. I mean, if it is something, it may be a vascular event, but even that deserves to be looked at, not assumed it's a TIA and it will resolve itself, or it's just the progression of vascular dementia. So that whole idea of the value. Now, here's the thing I'm going to ask Rachel to be honest with. Do you think Jim would have been able to do that on his own without your support?
I don't know. I think it helps to talk to someone. I think it helps to talk through, because he was feeling pretty desperate at that point. He had tried multiple times and had been turned away. He tried going to the ER, they'd send her back. So he was running out of options as well.
I tend to think by helping him create the structure and create the strong message, that's what finally made it through. And I think even though it didn't save Lynn, it made a big difference for Jim that he got her what he needed to get her, which is an acknowledgement that her pain had been ignored and that it needed to be dealt with, and that it had a source other than Lynn being unable to express herself. The pain was very, for her, real, and they missed it. And she needed, Lynn liked getting it right. And for her to have been right, there was something really wrong, I think was really important for Jim to know and for Lynn to feel that she was eventually listened to, even if it might have been too late for Lynn to keep going. I think for Lynn,
I didn't make it up. I was right.
I was right. There was something happening to me that deserved to be evaluated. I just couldn't put all the puzzle pieces together, but at least I now know that I was right. And I think that was important for Jim to feel that Lynn did eventually come through at the end and was right. So our message here, pain and the brain. When your brain is in pain, you cannot maintain previous levels of ability. So pay attention and don't dismiss, because you're going to miss something really important. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Rachel. And thanks to those out there who have the potential to make a difference. Please choose to do that. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, I'm Tifa Snow, and you just found our YouTube channel and watched one of our videos. I'm the owner and founder of Positive Approach to Care. Thanks for watching, and if you liked, if you have a comment about, or you would, please share it with people you know. Oh, and if you haven't yet done it, consider subscribing. We'll let you know when the next new video comes out, and you might want to visit our website, www.tifasnow.com, where you'll find other resources as well. See you there.